I'm standing in the boardroom of Palmer Industries, watching my father shake hands with the buyers. He's smiling like he's just won the lottery. In a way, he has. The deal is worth $42 million. My brothers, Cole and Brandon, are popping champagne in the corner, already planning how to spend their share. Nobody's looking at me. Nobody ever does. But that's about to change. Because tucked inside my briefcase is a document they don't know exists. A document that proves this company isn't theirs to sell. 3 years ago, my father made a bet with my brothers over dinner. I was standing right there in the kitchen, pretending not to hear. He said I'd never amount to anything, that I'd always be the failure of the family. They laughed and shook on it. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just walked to my room and started planning. Now, as I watch my father reach for the pen to sign the final papers, I pull out my phone. One text. That's all it takes. The lawyers I hired are already walking through the door. My father's smile disappears. This is where everything changes. Let me take you back to where this nightmare started. I'm Cassidy Palmer, and I'm 31 years old. I grew up in Austin, Texas, in a house that looked perfect from the outside. My father, Gerald Palmer, owned a mid-sized logistics company that moved freight across the Southwest. It wasn't fancy, but it paid the bills, and then some. I have 2 older brothers. Cole is 35, and Brandon is 33. Growing up, they were the golden children. Cole played football. Brandon was in the debate team. I was the accident. The daughter nobody planned for. My mother died when I was 7, and after that, my father just gave up on me. He poured everything into my brothers. New cars for them, used bikes for me, college funds for them, community college suggestions for me. I learned early that I had to fight for every scrap of attention, every bit of respect. So, I stopped fighting. I stopped asking. I just started working. While my brothers partied through college, I got a job at a shipping warehouse. I learned the business from the ground up. When I turned 23, I asked my father if I could work at Palmer Industries. He laughed at first. Then he saw I was serious. Fine, he said. You can work in the office. File papers. Answer phones. Basic stuff. I took the job. I showed up every day at 6 in the morning. I stayed until 8 at night. I learned every system, every route, every client account. I made myself useful. I fixed problems before anyone noticed they existed. I updated the software systems that my father still ran like it was 1995. I built relationships with drivers, warehouse managers, and clients. Within 2 years, I had quietly become the backbone of the company. But my father didn't notice. Or maybe he did, and he just didn't care. He still introduced me as his secretary. My brothers got the title of vice president without ever showing up to a single meeting. They got company credit cards. They got bonuses. I got a $10 an hour salary and a pat on the head. I should have quit. Everyone told me to quit. But I stayed. Not because I loved my family. Because I loved the company. I saw its potential. 3 years ago, everything came to a head. It was Thanksgiving dinner. We were sitting around the table at my father's house. Cole and Brandon were talking about their latest business ideas. Cole wanted to open a sports bar. Brandon wanted to invest in cryptocurrency. Both ideas were terrible. Both would lose money. My father was nodding along, pretending to be interested. I made the mistake of speaking up. I said the company needed to expand into cold chain logistics. Refrigerated transport was booming. We had the infrastructure to make it work. I had already done the research. I'd mapped out the costs, the potential clients, the return on investment. I handed my father a folder with all the details. He didn't even open it. He looked at me like I'd just suggested we burn the building down. Cassidy, he said, his voice dripping with disappointment. You don't understand business. This is why you'll never run anything. Cole laughed. Brandon smirked. And then my father said the words that changed everything. I'll make you boys a bet. $10,000 says Cassidy never makes anything of herself. She'll be filing papers for minimum wage her whole life. They shook hands on it right there at the table. My father pulled out his wallet and handed them each a $100 bill as a down payment. They toasted with their wine glasses. I sat there, frozen. My fork felt heavy in my hand. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the entire turkey at them. But I didn't. I stood up, excused myself politely, and walked to the bathroom. I locked the door and stared at myself in the mirror.
My face was red.
My hands were shaking. I realized something in that moment. I would never be enough for them. I could work 100 hours a week. I could save the company single-handedly. I could cure cancer, and they'd still find a way to dismiss me. So I stopped trying to be enough for them. I decided to be enough for me. I pulled out my phone and started researching. I needed a plan. I needed leverage. I needed proof. And most importantly, I needed to make sure that when the time came to prove them wrong, it would hurt. I spent that entire night in the bathroom, mapping out my future. By morning, I knew exactly what I had to do. The next week, I went to see a lawyer. Her name was Vanessa Cole, no relation to my brother. She had a small office in downtown Austin and she specialized in business law. I walked in with my folder of research and a simple question. If I've been running a company for years without proper compensation, do I have any legal rights? Vanessa listened to my story. She asked a lot of questions. How long had I been working there? What were my actual responsibilities? Did I have any employment contract? Did my father or brothers actually do any work? I answered everything honestly. She leaned back in her chair and smiled. Cassidy, she said, you might have a case for unjust enrichment. But more importantly, you have leverage. She explained that if I could prove I was the one actually running the operations, I could argue that the company's value was built on my labor, not theirs. I asked her what I needed to do. She told me to document everything. Every email, every client I brought in, every system I fixed, every decision I made. Keep records. Build your case. And when the time is right, we'll use it. For the next 3 years, I followed Vanessa's advice. I kept copies of everything. Every email I sent to clients. Every route optimization I implemented. Every cost-saving measure I put in place. I tracked every hour I worked. I documented every meeting my brothers missed. I recorded every promise my father made and broke. I built a file so thick it could choke a horse. But I didn't just collect evidence. I also made myself indispensable. I expanded the business into cold chain logistics, exactly like I'd suggested at Thanksgiving. My father didn't even notice I was doing it. I secured contracts with 3 major grocery chains. I negotiated deals with pharmaceutical companies that needed temperature-controlled shipping. Within 18 months, cold chain accounted for 60% of Palmer Industries' revenue. My father thought it was his idea. My brothers took credit in meetings with investors. I let them. I smiled. I nodded. I kept my mouth shut. Because I knew something they didn't. I had registered the cold chain division as a separate LLC. Palmer Cold Solutions. And I was the sole owner. It was legal. It was clean. And it was my insurance policy. Have you ever worked for someone who took all the credit for your ideas? Drop a comment and let me know. I'd love to hear your story. While I was building my empire in secret, my family was falling apart. My father's health was getting worse. He had diabetes and refused to manage it properly. He was in and out of the hospital every few months. Cole's sports bar failed within a year, losing $200,000 of company money. Brandon's crypto investments crashed, wiping out another $150,000. But somehow Palmer Industries kept growing. Revenue was up. Profits were up. We were landing bigger contracts than ever before. My father started getting calls from buyers. Companies that wanted to acquire Palmer Industries. The offer started at $20 million, then $30 million, then $40 million. My father was tempted. My brothers were practically drooling. They started talking about what they'd do with their share of the money. Cole wanted a beach house. Brandon wanted a Porsche. Nobody asked me what I wanted. Nobody even considered that I might have a say. That's when I knew the time was coming. They were going to sell. And when they did, I'd be ready. 6 months ago, my father called a family meeting. He said he'd received an offer he couldn't refuse. A private equity firm wanted to buy Palmer Industries for $42 million.
Cash.
The deal would close in 6 months, pending due diligence. Cole and Brandon were celebrating before the meeting even ended. They were already spending their share in their minds. My father looked tired but satisfied. He said this was his legacy, his life's work. He was finally cashing out. I sat quietly and listened. When he asked if I had any questions, I said no. He seemed relieved. After the meeting, I went straight to Vanessa's office. I showed her the offer letter. I showed her my documentation. I told her about Palmer Cold Solutions. She reviewed everything carefully. Then she looked up at me with a grin I'll never forget. "Cassidy," she said, "they can't sell what they don't own." We spent the next 6 months preparing. We filed the paperwork quietly. We built the case. We gathered testimonies from employees who confirmed I was the one actually running operations. We prepared for war. And we waited for the perfect moment to strike. The perfect moment came yesterday. The closing meeting was scheduled at the offices of the private equity firm, Highland Partners. It was supposed to be a formality. Sign the papers. Transfer the money. Shake hands. My father wore his best suit. My brothers wore matching ties like they were going to a wedding. I wore a simple black dress and carried my briefcase. We sat in a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Austin. The Highland Partners team was professional and polite. They walked us through the final documents. My father read nothing. He just kept asking when the money would hit his account. Cole and Brandon were on their phones, texting their friends about the deal. The lead attorney from Highland, a man named Gordon Fletcher, slid the final contract across the table.
"This is it," he said.
"Once you sign this, the deal is complete." My father picked up the pen. He was smiling. His hand was shaking slightly with excitement. And that's when I pulled out my phone. I sent a text to Vanessa. 3 words.
"Do it now."
30 seconds later, the conference room door opened. Vanessa walked in with 2 other attorneys. Everyone looked up confused. Gordon Fletcher frowned.
"Who are you?"
Vanessa smiled. "I'm Vanessa Cole, representing Cassidy Palmer. And we need to stop the sale immediately." The room went silent. You could hear the air conditioning humming. My father's pen froze in midair. Cole and Brandon looked at me like I'd just grown a second head. Gordon Fletcher stood up, clearly annoyed. "What is the meaning of this?" Vanessa placed a thick folder on the table. She opened it calmly, like she was ordering lunch. "This sale cannot proceed," she said, "because the sellers don't have full ownership of the company being sold. Palmer Industries' primary revenue stream comes from its cold chain logistics division. That division is owned entirely by my client, Cassidy Palmer, not by Gerald Palmer or his sons." My father's face went red. "That's ridiculous," he sputtered. "I own this company. I built it." Vanessa didn't flinch. She slid a document across the table. "This is the registration for Palmer Cold Solutions, LLC. Filed 3 years ago with the Texas Secretary of State. Sole owner, Cassidy Palmer." She slid another document. "These are contracts with major clients, all signed under Palmer Cold Solutions." She slid a third. "This is the revenue breakdown. 62% of Palmer Industries' income comes from cold chain operations. Operations that Ms. Palmer owns and controls." Gordon Fletcher picked up the documents. His eyes scanned them quickly. His expression changed from annoyed to concerned. "Is this accurate?" I spoke for the first time. "Yes." Every word. My father slammed his hand on the table. "You can't do this. This is my company. You work for me." I looked him dead in the eye. "I don't work for you anymore, Dad. I haven't for a long time. I've been running this company while you played golf. I built the cold chain division from nothing while Cole and Brandon wasted your money on failed businesses. I saved Palmer Industries. And I made sure to protect what I built." Cole finally found his voice. "This is insane. You can't just steal the company." I turned to him. "I didn't steal anything. I created something. There's a difference. You should learn it." Vanessa continued. "Furthermore, we have documented evidence of unjust enrichment. Ms. Palmer has been working for Palmer Industries for 8 years at an hourly wage far below market value, despite performing the duties of a chief operating officer. She has brought in millions in revenue, implemented critical systems, and sustained the company's growth, all while being compensated as administrative staff. Gordon Fletcher was reading through the documents faster now. He looked at my father. Mr. Palmer, did you know about this LLC? My father's jaw clenched.
No.
But she was using my resources. My trucks. My warehouses. My contacts. Vanessa smiled. Actually, she leased those resources from Palmer Industries at fair market rates. We have all the payment records. Brandon jumped in, his voice shaking. This is a setup.
She planned this.
She's been sabotaging us. I laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. Sabotaging you? I've been saving you. Palmer Industries would have gone bankrupt 2 years ago without the cold chain revenue. You want to know what sabotage looks like? It's watching my brothers lose $350,000 on sports bars and cryptocurrency while I'm working 80-hour weeks to keep the lights on. Vanessa placed another document on the table. We're also filing a claim for unpaid wages. Based on Ms. Palmer's actual responsibilities and industry standards, she should have been earning a minimum of $120,000 annually. She was paid $32,000. Over 8 years, that's a difference of $704,000 plus interest. My father stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. You ungrateful little. Gordon Fletcher held up his hand. Mr. Palmer, please sit down. He turned to his team. We need to halt this transaction immediately. If the primary asset being sold is under dispute, we cannot proceed. My father looked like he might have a heart attack right there. Cole and Brandon were pale. Their dreams of beach houses and Porsches were evaporating in real time. Gordon Fletcher looked at me. Miss Palmer, what is it you want? I took a deep breath. I want what's fair. Palmer Industries can keep operating. But Palmer Cold Solutions is mine. Any sale of Palmer Industries needs to account for that. Either you buy the company without the cold chain division or you negotiate with me separately. Gordon nodded slowly. He looked at my father. Mr. Palmer, we'll need time to reassess the valuation. Without the cold chain division, Palmer Industries is worth significantly less. How much less? My father asked, his voice barely a whisper. Gordon did some quick math on his laptop. Instead of $42 million, we're looking at approximately $14 million. Maybe less. The room went silent again. I watched my father's face crumble. I watched my brothers realize their payday had just shrunk by 2/3.
Part of me felt bad.
A small part. The rest of me felt vindicated. Vanessa gathered her documents. We'll be in touch regarding the unpaid wages claim. In the meantime, Ms. Palmer will continue operating Palmer Cold Solutions independently. She nodded to me, and we walked out of the conference room together. Behind us, I could hear my father shouting. I didn't look back. For the first time in my life, I didn't care what he thought. The next few days were chaos. My father called me 37 times. I didn't answer. Cole sent me angry text messages calling me a traitor. I blocked him. Brandon showed up at my apartment at 2 a.m, drunk and crying, begging me to fix this. I called the police. My father hired a lawyer to challenge the ownership of Palmer Cold Solutions. Vanessa was ready. She buried them in paperwork. Every email, every contract, every receipt, every testimony from employees confirming that I, not my father, had built the division from scratch. Their lawyer took one look at the evidence and advised my father to settle. Meanwhile, I met with Gordon Fletcher privately. I explained that I had no intention of destroying Palmer Industries. I just wanted recognition and fair compensation for what I'd built. He appreciated the honesty. We worked out a deal. Highland Partners would acquire Palmer Industries for $14 million as reassessed. Separately, they would acquire Palmer Cold Solutions from me for $18 million. Total deal value, $32 million. $10 million less than the original offer. My father would get his $14 million, split with my brothers however he wanted. I would get $18 million. All mine. When I told Vanessa, she actually laughed out loud. You just out-earned your entire family. How does it feel? Honestly, it felt surreal. The closing happened 3 weeks later. Different conference room. Same building. My father looked like he'd aged 10 years. Cole and Brandon wouldn't make eye contact with me. Gordon Fletcher handled everything professionally. The documents were signed in silence. The money was wired. Just like that, it was done. Palmer Industries belonged to Highland Partners. Palmer Cold Solutions belonged to Highland Partners. And I had $18 million in my bank account. My father got his $14 million. After taxes and legal fees, he'd walk away with about $9 million. He'd have to split that with Cole and Brandon, so about $3 million each. Not bad, but not what they'd expected. Not what they'd celebrated. And definitely not enough to make up for a lifetime of treating me like I was worthless. As we were leaving, my father finally spoke to me. He was standing by the elevator, looking small and defeated. "Cassidy," he said quietly. I stopped. I didn't turn around. He continued. "I never thought you'd. I never knew you could." I turned to face him. "You never thought I'd be successful?" I finished his sentence.
Yeah, Dad.
"I know. You made that pretty clear." He flinched. "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did. You said it at Thanksgiving 3 years ago. You bet Cole and Brandon $10,000 that I'd never amount to anything. Remember?" His face went pale. "You heard that?" I stepped closer to him. "I heard everything. Every insult. Every dismissal. Every time you made me feel small. I heard it all. And I used it. I used your doubt as fuel. So, thank you. Thank you for underestimating me. It made this so much sweeter." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Cole and Brandon were watching from across the lobby. They looked uncomfortable. "I'm not angry anymore," I continued. "I'm just done. Done pretending we're a family. Done hoping you'll be proud of me. Done caring what you think. You wanted to bet on my failure? You lost. Simple as that." I pressed the elevator button. The doors opened. Before I stepped inside, I looked back one more time. "Oh, and Dad? That $10,000 you bet? You might want to pay Cole and Brandon. Technically, you lost."
The doors closed.
I rode down to the parking garage alone. I sat in my car for a long time just breathing. It was over. The fight. The struggle. The years of proving myself. All of it. Over. I started the engine and drove to Vanessa's office. She was waiting with champagne. We toasted to new beginnings. To standing up for yourself. To getting what you deserve. It was the best champagne I'd ever tasted. Here's the thing nobody tells you about winning. It doesn't feel the way you think it will. I thought I'd feel triumphant. Powerful. Untouchable. Instead, I felt tired. Relieved, but tired. I'd spent 3 years planning this moment. 3 years collecting evidence. 3 years playing nice while my family treated me like garbage. And now that it was over, I didn't know what to do with myself. I took a week off. I went to the beach in California. I sat in the sand and watched the waves. I thought about my mom. She died when I was 7, so I don't remember her very well. But I remember her telling me once that I was smart, that I could do anything I put my mind to. I wish she could have seen this. I think she would have been proud. When I got back to Austin, I had decisions to make. Highland Partners wanted me to stay on as a consultant for Palmer Cold Solutions. They offered me a generous salary plus equity. I said yes, not because I needed the money, but because I'd built something I was proud of and I wanted to see it succeed. I also started looking at investment opportunities. I wanted to help other people who'd been overlooked and underestimated. Women mostly. People like me who'd been told they'd never be successful. I partnered with Vanessa to create a small venture fund. We called it Second Chance Capital. Our focus was on funding women-led businesses that traditional investors ignored. We started small. 50,000 here, 100,000 there. But the returns were incredible. Turns out, when you invest in people who've had to fight for everything, they don't waste opportunities. Within 6 months, Second Chance Capital had backed 12 businesses. Within a year, 3 of them had doubled their revenue. It felt good. Better than the 18 million. Better than proving my father wrong. It felt like I was building something that mattered. I also reconnected with some old friends. People I'd lost touch with during the years I was working myself to death at Palmer Industries. They were happy for me. Genuinely happy. Not like my family, who only cared about what they could get from me. One friend, a woman named Adriana, who I'd known since high school, asked me a question over coffee. Do you regret it? Cutting off your family? I thought about it. Honestly, no.
They weren't really family.
Family supports you. Family believes in you. They were just people I happened to be related to.
What they did to you is terrible, she said.
But you handled it perfectly. I smiled. I learned from the best. Myself. About 6 months after the sale, I got a call from Cole. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. His voice was quiet, subdued. Cass, can we talk? I sighed. What do you want, Cole? He hesitated. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I laughed. It wasn't a kind laugh. You're sorry? For what, exactly? For laughing when Dad bet against me? For taking credit for my work? For calling me a traitor when I stood up for myself?
For all of it, he said.
I was wrong. We were all wrong. You were the one holding everything together, and we treated you like you were nothing. I didn't respond. He continued. Brandon and I both blew through our share of the money. I invested in another bar. It failed. He bought a franchise. It failed. We're both broke again. Dad's health is getting worse. He's spending everything on medical bills. I felt a twinge of something. Not quite sympathy. Maybe pity. That's not my problem, I said gently. I know, Cole admitted. I'm not asking for money. I just wanted you to know that you were right. About everything. And I'm sorry it took losing everything for me to see it. We talked for a few more minutes. It wasn't a reconciliation, but it was something. An acknowledgement. When we hung up, I felt lighter. I never heard from my father again. He passed away 8 months after the sale. Complications from diabetes.
Cole called to tell me.
He asked if I wanted to come to the funeral. I thought about it for a long time. In the end, I went. Not for him.
For me.
I needed closure. The funeral was small. Cole, Brandon, a handful of old business associates. I sat in the back. I didn't cry. I didn't feel much of anything. During the service, Brandon gave a eulogy. He talked about what a great businessman our father was. How he built Palmer Industries from nothing. How he provided for his family. I wanted to laugh. But I didn't. I just sat there and let him have his fantasy. After the service, I walked up to the casket. I looked at my father's face, peaceful in death. I thought about all the years I'd spent trying to earn his approval. All the nights I'd worked late, hoping he'd notice. All the times I'd bitten my tongue when he praised my brothers for doing nothing. I leaned down and whispered, I made something of myself, Dad. Just like you bet I wouldn't. I hope you can see that now. I walked out of the church and didn't look back. That chapter of my life was finally, completely closed. A year after everything happened, Second Chance Capital was thriving. We'd expanded our portfolio to 25 companies. Our success rate was higher than most traditional venture funds. Vanessa and I were getting calls from investors who wanted to partner with us. We were careful about who we worked with. We only took money from people who shared our vision. People who understood that investing in underestimated people wasn't just good morally. It was good business. I also started speaking at events. Women's business conferences. Entrepreneurship seminars. I told my story, not for sympathy, but to show other women that you don't have to accept how people treat you. That you can build your own path. That being underestimated can be your greatest advantage. After one speech, a young woman came up to me. She was maybe 25, with nervous energy and fire in her eyes. She told me her family didn't believe in her business idea. They said she should get a real job. She asked me what she should do. I told her what Vanessa had told me years ago. Document everything. Build your case. Make yourself indispensable. And when the time comes, don't hesitate.
Strike.
She thanked me with tears in her eyes. I gave her my card. 6 months later, she sent me her pitch deck. Second Chance Capital invested. Her company is now worth $2 million. People ask me sometimes if I feel guilty, if I think I went too far, if I should have just talked to my family instead of destroying them financially. My answer is always the same. I didn't destroy them. I protected myself. There's a difference. My father had every opportunity to treat me fairly, to pay me what I was worth, to acknowledge my contributions.
He chose not to.
My brothers had every opportunity to be decent human beings, to support their sister instead of mocking her.
They chose not to.
I didn't make their choices for them. I just stopped protecting them from the consequences. And as for talking to them, I tried that for years. I suggested ideas. I asked for recognition. I worked myself to exhaustion trying to prove my worth. They didn't listen. So I stopped talking and started acting. That's not cruelty. That's survival. That's self-respect. That's knowing your value when nobody else does. If you've made it this far, drop a comment and tell me. Have you ever had to prove yourself to people who doubted you? How did it feel when you finally succeeded? I'd love to hear your story. Because here's what I've learned. The people who doubt you the loudest are usually the ones who are most afraid of what you'll become. Last week, I bought a house. Not a mansion. Just a nice place in the hills outside Austin. 3 bedrooms. A view of the sunset. A garden where I can grow tomatoes. It's mine. Fully paid for. No mortgage. No one can take it away from me. I hung pictures on the walls.
Pictures of my mom.
Pictures of me and Vanessa. Pictures of the women entrepreneurs we've invested in. I even hung my old employee ID badge from Palmer Industries in a frame in my office. A reminder of where I started. A reminder that you can be surrounded by people who don't see your worth and still know it yourself. Sometimes I sit on my back porch in the evening, watching the sky turn orange and pink. I think about the girl I used to be. The one who filed papers for $10 an hour. The one who listened to her father bet against her and said nothing. I'm proud of her. She survived. She planned. She waited for the right moment. And when that moment came, she didn't hesitate. She changed her life. Now I get to live the life she fought for. And every single day, I make sure it's worth it. I wake up early. I work on things I care about. I help people who deserve it. I don't waste time trying to prove myself to people who'll never see me. I just live. Fully. Freely. Successfully. If you're reading this and you see yourself in my story, I want you to know something. You are not defined by the people who underestimate you. You are not limited by the family that dismisses you. You are not trapped by the circumstances you were born into. You have power. More than you know. The power to document. The power to plan. The power to protect what you build. The power to walk away from people who don't deserve you. My father bet that I'd never be successful. He lost that bet in the most spectacular way possible. But here's the real truth.
It was never about him. It was about me.
About proving to myself that I could build something. That I could stand up for myself. That I could win. And I did. So if someone's betting against you right now, let them. Let them doubt. Let them dismiss you. Let them underestimate you. And while they're laughing, you document. You plan. You build. You prepare. And when the moment is right, you show them exactly what they missed. Thank you for reading my story. This is Cassidy Palmer, signing off from Austin, where the sun is setting and the future is bright. I didn't just give them a surprise. I gave them the truth. I was always going to be successful. They just couldn't see it.